My son humiliated me publicly, his own mother, just to impress his mother-in-law. She stared at me with that victorious grin. Yet when I left the house, I already knew those 3 quiet words would bring her crawling to my door. Before this story starts, I want to get to know you. Write the flag colors of the country you are watching, and I will try to guess it. Who knows? Maybe we are neighbors. My name is Yvonne Fields. I'm 59 years old, and what I'm about to tell you changed forever the relationship with my only son. I don't know if I did the right thing. I still ask myself that question some nights when the house is silent and all you can hear is the tick-tock of the grandfather clock that belonged to my husband. But I do know one thing. There are moments in a woman's life when she must choose between being loved or being respected, and I made my choice. Everything started 3 years ago when my husband Arnold died. Massive heart attack, 58 years old, no goodbye. He left his wedding ring on the nightstand. Like always, I kept it in a small indigo velvet box. I still look at it sometimes when I need to remember who I was before I became the invisible woman in this story. Arnold and I built everything together. The hardware stores downtown, the 3-story house in Buckhead, our savings, Jamal's future. When Arnold died, Jamal was 34 years old, living in Charlotte. He worked for a logistics company. Good boy, responsible, or so I thought. 6 months after the funeral, he called me. "Mama, I met someone." Her name was Brianna, 25 years old, marketing student, perfect smile, flawless nails, and a mother who seemed like she walked out of one of those reality TV shows I never liked. The first time I saw them together, something in my chest tightened. But a mother doesn't say those things. A mother smiles, hugs, welcomes. And that's what I did, until that night. Until my son asked me to apologize in front of that woman who never respected me. Sometimes we trust too much in those we shouldn't, don't we? Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read about it. Before I tell you how I got to that moment, that terrible night when my son asked me to leave his house, you need to understand who I was, who I used to be. Because sometimes to understand a fall, you first have to remember the height from which someone fell. Arnold and I met when I was 23 years old. He worked at his father's hardware store in downtown Atlanta. I was an elementary school teacher at a public school near Old Fourth Ward. My cousin Linda introduced us at a Christmas party. He wore a dark green sweater and smelled like fresh-cut wood and aftershave. When he asked me to dance, his hands were rough but gentle. "You know," he told me that night, "I've never been good with words, but I do know how to build things that last." And he kept his promise. We married 8 months later in a small Baptist church in Decatur. My dress was simple, white lace with long sleeves. Arnold cried when he saw me walk down the aisle. He didn't hide it. He took my hands and said, "I'm going to take care of you my whole life, Yvonne." And he did. For 35 years. He did. We first lived in a small apartment in Midtown, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen where we could barely fit together, a small balcony where Arnold grew tomatoes in pots. In the mornings, I made coffee with cinnamon. He drank it while reading the newspaper, always the business section first, then sports. I graded my students' papers at the table with a red pen that he sharpened for me every night before bed. Those small gestures, those details you don't know you'll miss until they're gone. Jamal was born when I was 25, natural birth, 12 hours of labor. Arnold never left my side, held my hand so tight he had bruises on his knuckles afterward. When the nurse put our son in my arms, Arnold leaned over and hugged both of us. "My family," he whispered. "My complete family." Jamal was a calm baby. He slept well, ate well. He had his father's eyes and my nose. He grew fast, as if he was in a hurry to discover the world. Arnold took him to the hardware store on Saturdays, sat him on the counter, and taught him the names of tools. This is a wrench, son. This is a Phillips head screwdriver. Jamal would watch him with those enormous eyes, fascinated, as if his father was the wisest man in the universe. And for him, he was. For me, too. Sundays, we went to Piedmont Park. Arnold bought cotton candy, Jamal ran after the pigeons. I sat on the bench and watched them from afar, thinking, this is happiness. This is everything a woman can ask for. How naive I was. How naive we all are when we believe happiness is a permanent state and not a fleeting moment we must catch with both hands before it escapes. When Jamal turned 10 years old, Arnold's father's hardware store closed. The economic downturn, mounting debts. The old man died 6 months later, of pure heartbreak, I believe. Arnold inherited the debts and an empty storefront. We're going to start over, he told me one night in our small kitchen. You and me, Yvonne, like always. And we did. I left my teaching job, not because he asked me to, but because it was necessary. Someone had to be at the hardware store while Arnold found customers, negotiated with suppliers, rebuilt what his father had lost. We worked 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Jamal ate dinner at my mother's house after school. Many nights we arrived home so late he was already asleep. I would go into his room, adjust his blanket, kissed his forehead. Forgive me, my love, I whispered. This is for you. Everything is for you. And it was. Within 5 years, the hardware store was profitable again. Within 10 years, it was one of the most recognized in downtown Atlanta. Arnold opened a second location, then a third. We bought the house in Buckhead when Jamal was 16. 3 stories, backyard garden, garage for 2 cars. I chose every piece of furniture, every curtain, every lamp. This is our home, I told Arnold the day we moved in. The home where we're going to grow old together. He hugged me from behind, rested his chin on my shoulder. Together, he repeated. Always together. Jamal studied business administration at Georgia Tech. He visited us every 2 months, bringing a huge suitcase of dirty clothes that I would wash, iron, and fold carefully. He would laugh. Mama, I know how to do my own laundry. I know, I'd tell him, but I like doing it. Because that's what a mother does, right? She finds pleasure in small things, in caring, in serving, in giving, and she never thinks that one day that devotion could be used against her. Arnold died on a Tuesday morning. We were having breakfast. He put his hand to his chest, looked at me with those eyes I loved so much, and said, Yvonne, He didn't finish the sentence. He collapsed in his chair. I called the ambulance, performed CPR as best I could, the way I remembered from a course I'd taken years before, but it was too late. At the hospital, a young doctor with round glasses told me, I'm so sorry, ma'am. We did everything we could. Jamal arrived that same night from Charlotte. He hugged me in the hospital hallway, and we both cried like we had never cried before. I have you, he whispered to me. I'm always going to take care of you, Mama, just like Daddy took care of you. I believed him. How could I not believe him? He was my son, my only son. The funeral was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The church was packed. Customers, friends, family, neighbors, everyone loved Arnold. I sat in the front pew with Arnold's ring clutched in my right hand. I didn't cry during the service. I couldn't. It was as if all my tears had been used up at the hospital, and now there was only a huge hole in my chest. That night at home, alone for the first time in 35 years, I opened Arnold's closet. His shirts still smelled like him. I sat on the floor and hugged them all, one by one. And there, alone in that closet that smelled of wood and fresh aftershave, I finally could cry. While I'm telling you all this, I wonder where you're listening from. Write the name of your city in the comments. I'd like to know where you're joining me in this story. The first 6 months after Arnold's death were like walking underwater. Everything moved slowly. Sounds reached me muffled. I existed, but I wasn't living. I woke up at 6 a.m. out of habit, even though there was no one to make coffee for anymore. I showered, got dressed, sat in the empty kitchen, and looked out the window as the sun illuminated the garden that Arnold had planted. His rose bushes kept blooming. How cruel, isn't it, that things keep growing when the person who planted them is no longer here? Jamal called me every day from Charlotte. "How are you, Mama? Did you eat well? Do you need anything?" I told him I was fine, that I ate well, that I didn't need anything. White lies we tell so we don't worry those we love. The truth was, I barely touched food, that the house felt too big for me, that every corner reminded me of Arnold, and that sometimes in the early morning I would reach my hand toward his side of the bed, hoping to find him there, but it was always empty, cold. Arnold's lawyer, attorney Gregory Carter, a distinguished older man with gray hair and formal manners, called me to his office 3 months after the funeral. "Mrs. Fields, we need to review your husband's will." I sat across from his mahogany desk with my hands on my leather purse, the same one Arnold had given me for our last anniversary. Attorney Carter opened a thick folder and pulled out several documents. "Mr. Fields was very careful with his affairs," he began. "He left everything in order, the hardware stores, the properties, the bank accounts." I nodded, not really understanding where this was all leading. "You are the sole heir, Mrs. Fields. Everything passes to your name. The 3 hardware stores, the house in Buckhead, the vacation home in Hilton Head that you bought 2 years ago, the investments, the savings." He paused. "It's a considerable estate. We're talking about approximately $2.5 million in assets." The number hit me like a cold wave. I knew Arnold had worked hard, that the hardware stores were doing well, but I had never stopped to add it up, never thought in terms of an estate. "Mr. Fields left very specific instructions," Attorney Carter continued. "You have complete control over everything. You can manage it as you see fit, and when you decide, you can pass it on to your son Jamal." "When I decide." That's what you said, right? Exactly. The will stipulates that you are the sole owner while you live. Jamal will inherit only after your death, or if you decide to make changes beforehand. The attorney handed me a card with an accountant's name. "I recommend you meet with him, review everything calmly, understand what you have in your hands." I left that office dizzy. Arnold had left me protected. More than protected, he had left me secure, independent, owner of my own destiny. For the first time in months, something like peace settled in my chest. I told Jamal that same afternoon over the phone. "Mama, I'm glad Daddy left everything well organized for you," he said. His voice sounded warm, genuine. "Now you don't have to worry about anything. You have your house, your income. You can live peacefully." "Yes," I responded. "Your father was always thoughtful. And when the time comes, all of that will be mine, right? Eventually." Something in the way he said it made me pause. It wasn't the question. It was the tone, as if he was already counting the money, as if my death were just pending paperwork. "Eventually," I repeated, "when I'm no longer here." Of course. Of course, I didn't mean, you know what I meant, Mama." We hung up shortly after. I sat in the living room with the phone still in my hand, looking at Arnold's ring resting in its indigo velvet box on the coffee table. It was the first time I felt a small chill, an uneasiness, a tiny crack in the image I had of my son. But I ignored it, because that's what mothers do, right? Ignore the signs, justify, forgive before there's anything to forgive. 6 months after that conversation, Jamal called me excited. "Mama, I have news." "Tell me, honey. I met someone." My heart jumped. Jamal had been single for years, focused on his work, his career. The idea that he had finally found someone filled me with joy. "Tell me about her. What's her name?" "Brianna. Brianna Oliver. She's 25, studying marketing. I met her at a work conference 3 months ago." 3 months and you didn't tell me anything? I scolded him gently. "I wanted to be sure, but Mama, this is the one. I know it." "I'm so happy for you, Jamal. When am I going to meet her?" "Soon, very soon. You're gonna love her." 2 weeks later, Jamal came to Atlanta and brought Brianna. I spent the entire previous day preparing collard greens with ham hocks, his favorite. I set the table with the lace tablecloth that had belonged to my grandmother. I arranged fresh flowers in the center. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted that girl to feel welcome in our family. They arrived at 2 p.m. Jamal entered first, smiling from ear to ear, holding hands with a slender girl with long, straight hair, sharp features, flawless makeup. "Mama, this is Brianna." Brianna extended her hand. She didn't hug me, just her hand, polite but distant. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Fields." Her voice was soft, almost childlike, but her eyes looked me up and down in 2 seconds, evaluating me, cataloging me, filing me away. "The pleasure is mine, Brianna. Welcome." We sat in the living room. I served sweet tea. Brianna declined it. "I don't drink sweet tea. Thank you. Do you have sparkling water?" "Of course. Let me get some." While I went to the kitchen, I heard them talking in low voices. I couldn't make out the words, but Brianna's tone was critical, as if she was making comments about something. I returned with the water. "What a big house," Brianna said, looking around. "It must be difficult to keep it clean." "I manage," I responded. "Do you live alone here, in this big house?" "Yes." "How lonely, isn't it?" The way she said it wasn't compassion. It was pity, or something worse. Jamal quickly changed the subject. "Mama made collard greens. They're the best in all of Georgia." We moved to the dining room. I served the plates. Jamal ate with appetite, as always. Brianna moved the food from one side to the other with her fork. "Don't you like it?" I asked. "It's very seasoned for me," she responded. "My stomach is sensitive." "Can I prepare something else for you?" "No, don't worry. I'm on a diet anyway." The lunch felt eternal. Brianna talked about her studies, her plans, her family. "My mom is an interior decorator. She has exquisite taste. She always tells me that a woman's home reflects who she is." And while saying this, her eyes once again scanned my dining room, my curtains, my pictures, finding them insufficient. When they finished eating, Jamal and I were alone for a moment while Brianna went to the bathroom. "What do you think?" my son asked excitedly. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to tell him that this girl had made me feel small in my own house, that she had criticized my collard greens without even tasting them properly, that her cold eyes didn't match her polite smile. But I didn't. "She's very pretty," I said. "Right? I'm so in love, Mama." And there it was, that sparkle in his eyes, that sparkle that made me silence everything else. Because a mother doesn't destroy her son's illusion. A mother smiles, blesses, steps aside, even when all her instincts scream that something isn't right. Brianna returned from the bathroom. "Mrs. Fields, thank you for lunch. It was very traditional." Before leaving, she hugged me, a mechanical embrace without warmth, and she whispered in my ear, "Jamal talks a lot about you, about how close you two are." She said it as if it were a problem, as if I were an obstacle. I watched them leave from the door. Jamal said goodbye with a kiss on my cheek. "I'll call you tomorrow, Mama. Thanks for having us." I closed the door, stood alone in the foyer, and knew, though I didn't want to know, that this girl was going to change everything. I went to the living room, took the indigo velvet box, opened the lid. Arnold's ring sparkled under the afternoon light. "I don't like her," I whispered to the ring, as if he could hear me. "I don't like her for our son." But the ring didn't answer. And I stored my doubts in the same place where I kept that ring, in silence, in solitude, in a mother's fear of losing her only son's love. There are things you learn when you get older. One of them is that a mother's love has a terrible flaw. It makes us blind. We see what we want to see, we believe what we need to believe. We forgive the unforgivable just to keep the peace. And that's how I was for the next 2 years. Blind. Voluntarily blind. Jamal and Brianna got engaged 6 months after that first lunch at my house. He called me excited. "Mama, I proposed." She said, "Yes, we're getting married." "Congratulations, honey," I responded. And I was sincere. Despite my reservations, I wanted my son to be happy. "When will the wedding be?" "In a year. Brianna wants a big wedding, something elegant." "Of course. Whatever you need, you can count on me." "Thanks, Mama." I knew I could count on you. What I didn't know then was that counting on me meant much more than I imagined. A week later, Brianna called me. It was the first time we had spoken directly without Jamal as an intermediary. "Mrs. Fields, I need your help." "Tell me, Brianna, how can I help you?" "Well, my mom and I are planning the wedding, but the budget we have won't cover everything we want. The Swan House is available for the reception. It's beautiful, but it costs $85,000 just for the venue." My breath caught. $85,000 is a lot of money, Brianna. "I know, but my mom says a wedding is the only chance a woman has to feel like a princess. And Jamal agrees. It's just that, well, you know Jamal earns well, but not enough for this." There was a silence. I knew what was coming. I could feel it in the air, like when the sky darkens before a storm. "Could you help us, Mrs. Fields? I know Mr. Arnold left resources, and this is for your son, so Jamal can have the wedding he deserves." "Let me think about it," I responded. "Of course, but they only hold the venue with a deposit. If we don't pay within 2 weeks, we'll lose it." We hung up. I sat in the living room with the phone in my hand. $85,000 was an enormous amount, but it was also true that I had the resources, that Arnold had left me well off, that everything we had would eventually be for Jamal anyway. What difference did it make to give it to him now or later? That night, I took Arnold's ring from its box, placed it in my palm, and looked at it under the lamplight. "What would you do?" I asked the ring, as if he could answer me. "Would you give him the money?" But Arnold wasn't there to advise me, and I had to decide alone. I transferred the $85,000 to Jamal the next day. "Mama, you don't know what this means to us," he told me over the phone. "You're the best. Brianna is happy. I'm happy." "I'm glad, honey. I just want you to be happy." "We are, Mama. Thanks to you." I thought that would be enough. I thought I had bought my place in my son's life, in his marriage, in his future. How naive. The wedding was in June, a year after the engagement. Brianna looked beautiful, I can't deny that. White dress with beading, 10-foot veil, magazine-worthy hairstyle. The Swan house was decorated with thousands of white roses and gold ribbons. I arrived early in my navy blue dress, the same one I had worn to my cousin's wedding 2 years before. I didn't buy a new one. It seemed unnecessary. Brianna saw me and frowned. "Mrs. Fields, is that the dress you're wearing?" "Yes. Why?" "It's just that mothers of the groom usually wear something more special, more elegant." "This dress is elegant," I responded, feeling myself blush. "Oh, it doesn't matter," she said, turning to look at her mother. "What can you do?" Her mother, Latrice Oliver, was a 49-year-old woman with platinum blonde hair, enhanced lips, and a surgically sculpted figure. She extended her hand without smiling. "You must be Jamal's mother, Yvonne Fields." "Nice to meet you, Latrice." "Oliver." She looked me up and down, exactly as her daughter had done in our first encounter. "Brianna told me you helped with the wedding expenses. Very generous of you." She said it as if it were the least I could do, as if it were my obligation. The ceremony was beautiful. Jamal cried when Brianna walked down the aisle. I cried too, though I'm not sure they were completely happy tears. There was something about it all that made me feel out of place. During the reception, they seated me at a back table with distant relatives of Brianna's who didn't speak to me all night. The main table was only for the bride and groom, Brianna's parents, and the wedding party. "And the mother of the groom?" I heard someone ask. "Oh, that's the lady in blue back there," Latrice responded. "Poor thing. She came alone. She's a widow. Lost her husband recently." Poor thing, as if I were a figure of pity. Jamal came to check on me between dances. "Are you okay, Mama? Do you like the party?" "It's beautiful, honey. Everything turned out perfect." "Thanks to you," he said, kissing my forehead. "None of this would have been possible without you." And he went back to the dance floor, back to his new wife, back to his new life where I was becoming smaller and smaller, more and more invisible. I left before they cut the cake. No one noticed my absence. Jamal and Brianna moved to Atlanta a month after the wedding. "I got a better job here," Jamal explained to me, "and Brianna wants to be closer to her mom." "That's great," I said. "This way we'll see each other more often." "Exactly. But Mama, we need to talk about something." "Tell me." "We're looking for a house. We saw one in Sandy Springs. 3 bedrooms, terrace, 2-car garage. It's perfect, except the down payment is $120,000. There it was again. The request disguised as conversation. "Jamal, I already gave you $85,000 for the wedding." "I know, Mama, and I'm grateful. But this is an investment. It's our home, where we're going to raise our family, where your grandchildren will grow up." Grandchildren. That word hit me straight in the heart. "I thought you could save for the down payment," I tried. "We could, but that would take us 2 or 3 years, and the house will sell before then. Mama, you have the resources. Daddy left everything so you could live well." "Yes, but also for me, for my future, right?" He was right. In a way, everything Arnold and I built was eventually for Jamal. Why wait? I transferred the $120,000. They bought the house in Sandy Springs. I helped them move. I carried boxes, cleaned floors, hung curtains. Latrice was also there, directing everything as if it were her house. "Brianna, honey, that picture goes in the living room, not the dining room." "Jamal, dear, did you hire the landscaper I recommended?" I was in the kitchen arranging dishes in the cabinets when I heard Latrice's voice. "Mrs. Yvonne is going to be coming around here a lot." "She's my mother," Jamal responded. "I suppose so, from time to time." "Oh, son, just be careful. Mothers-in-law can be complicated, invasive. My Brianna needs her space to make her nest. You understand?" Jamal didn't respond. I stopped breathing, hidden in that kitchen with a porcelain plate trembling in my hands. Invasive. That was the word Latrice used to describe me. I came out of the kitchen as if I hadn't heard anything. I smiled, helped, left early, and in my car alone, I finally cried. Your support truly keeps me going, and if you'd like to be a source of inspiration for others too, give this story a like and subscribe. Together, we can reach and help even more people. The following months were an exercise in disappearing. I tried to be the perfect mother-in-law, the one who doesn't invade, who doesn't bother, who waits to be called instead of calling. Jamal invited me to lunch once a month, always with Brianna, always with Latrice. I arrived with some homemade dessert. Brianna left it in the kitchen without trying it. I'm watching my figure, but thank you. Latrice filled the conversations with stories about her family, her trips, her successes as a decorator. Last month, I decorated a house in Brookhaven. The owners were fascinated with my work. They paid me $65,000 just for the consultation. I listened in silence. Sometimes Jamal asked how I was. I'm fine, honey. Everything's fine. Small lies so as not to be a burden. One day, Brianna announced she was pregnant. Jamal called me, crying with happiness. Mama, I'm going to be a dad. You're going to be a grandmother. That news filled me with hope. A baby, a grandchild, a new opportunity to be needed, to be loved, to be important in my son's life. But Latrice had other plans. I'm going to help Brianna with the baby, she announced at Sunday family dinner. I'm moving in with them for the first 3 months. A first-time mother needs her mother. I could help too, I offered timidly. Latrice looked at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, Yvonne, of course. When we have everything organized, we'll let you know. They never let me know. My grandson was born in March. Jamal sent me a photo via text. His name is Mason. He weighs 7 pounds, 8 ounces. He's perfect. Can I come meet him? Of course, Mama, but wait a few days. Brianna is very tired. Latrice is here helping. As soon as we're more organized, I'll let you know. I waited a week, 2 weeks, 3. Finally, a month later, they let me visit him. Latrice opened the door. Oh, Yvonne, good thing you came. Come in, but don't make noise. The baby is sleeping. Mason was in his crib. Tiny, perfect, with closed eyes and little clenched fists. I leaned over to touch him, to caress his soft cheek. Don't wake him up, Latrice warned me. We just got him to sleep, and it took hours. I stood there, looking at my grandson without being able to hold him, without being able to kiss him, without being able to tell him how much I loved him. 20 minutes later, Latrice suggested it was time for me to go. Brianna needs to rest. I drove back to my house with a knot in my throat. I arrived, closed the door, went straight to the living room, took out Arnold's ring, and this time I didn't just cry, I talked to it. I'm disappearing, Arnold, I told the ring. I'm becoming invisible. And the worst part is that I'm erasing myself out of fear, out of love, out of not wanting to lose our son. The ring sparkled in my hand, and I, in that enormous, empty house, understood something terrible. I had become the mother-in-law who waits for permission to love, who apologizes for existing, who pays for every crumb of attention. And still, I remained silent, because that's what mothers who are afraid do. They swallow the pain, smile, and hope that someday someone will notice they're bleeding inside. While I'm telling you all this, I wonder if you've experienced something similar. Have you ever felt like you erase yourself to keep the peace? Write it in the comments. Sometimes just knowing we're not alone gives us strength to continue. There's a difference between suspecting and knowing, between intuiting and confirming, between feeling something is wrong and seeing the truth with your own eyes. I had been suspecting for 2 years, but what I discovered that afternoon changed everything. Mason was 6 months old when Brianna called me. It was strange. She never called me. It was always Jamal who bridged the gap between us. "Mrs. Fields, I need a favor." "Tell me, Brianna." "I have an emergency. My mom had to go to Savannah for an urgent project, and I have a doctor's appointment. There's no one who can watch Mason. Could you?" My heart jumped. "Of course. What time?" "Can you come in an hour? The appointment is at 3. "I'll be there." I drove to Sandy Springs with an excitement I hadn't felt in months. Finally, I was going to be alone with my grandson. Finally, I was going to be able to hold him, rock him, sing to him without anyone watching me. Brianna opened the door. She was wearing sweatpants and her hair was pulled back. Without makeup, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "Thank you for coming. Mason just ate. He should sleep in an hour. Diapers are in his room, wipes too. Don't give him anything but water, please." "Don't worry, we'll be fine. I'll be back in 2 hours, maximum." She took her purse and left hurriedly. I was left alone in that house that I had helped pay for, but where I always felt like an uncomfortable guest. Mason was in his bouncer, awake, looking at a colorful mobile hanging above him. When he saw me, he smiled. That smile, dear God, that smile that reminded me of Jamal when he was a baby. I picked him up carefully, cradled him against my chest. He smelled like baby powder and warm milk. I hummed a lullaby I used to sing to Jamal 35 years ago. "Sleep, my baby, sleep. My love, sleep, peace of my heart." Mason closed his eyes. His breathing became slow, deep. I carried him to his crib and laid him down gently. I stood watching him for long minutes. My grandson, the extension of my son, the continuation of Arnold and me. For the first time in years, I felt my life had meaning again. I left the room carefully, not making a sound. I went to the kitchen, thinking about preparing something for when Brianna returned. Tea, a sandwich, something that would show I wasn't just useful for babysitting, but could be part of this family. The kitchen was spotless, everything in its place. The glass table sparkled under the afternoon light, and there, on the table, was Brianna's phone. She had forgotten it. I didn't touch it. It wasn't my intention, but the screen lit up on its own, with a notification. A message from Latrice. "Did you already talk to Jamal about the trust fund thing? You have to pressure more. If the old lady doesn't put the house in his name, everything gets complicated." I froze. The screen went dark. My hands were trembling. I read correctly. The old lady. Trust fund. Put the house in his name. The screen lit up again with another message. "Remember what we talked about. While everything is in her name, you have no control. Jamal needs to be firmer." The phone vibrated again. "And don't tell him about Charlotte yet. First, secure the Buckhead house." Charlotte. What about Charlotte? I stepped away from the phone as if it were burning. I went to the living room, sat on the couch, tried to breathe, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. The trust fund, the house, the old lady. I was the old lady. My house, the house Arnold and I bought, the house where we raised Jamal. They wanted me to put it in my son's name? Why? For what? The baby cried. I went to his room, picked him up, rocked him until he calmed, but while I did, my mind kept spinning. All the money requests, the $85,000 for the wedding, the $120,000 for the house down payment. Had it been filial love or strategy? All the spaced-out visits, the scarce invitations, had it been respect for my space or calculated distancing? Brianna returned 2 hours later. "Everything okay?" "Perfect. Mason slept almost the whole time." "Good. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Fields. I left quickly. I couldn't be there any longer. I couldn't look her in the eyes without her seeing my discovery. In my car, before starting the engine, I took out my phone. I searched my bank transfer history. 85,000, June last year. 120,000, August last year. 15,000, October for baby furniture. 25,000, December for kitchen renovation. 35,000, February for Brianna's car. Hers broke down. $280,000 in less than 2 years. How had I not seen it before? How had I been so blind? I got home, went straight to my study, took out all the documents Attorney Carter had given me. Arnold's will, the house deeds, the hardware store property titles, the account statements, everything was in my name, as Arnold had wanted, because Arnold knew me, knew our son. He knew Jamal was good, but impressionable. He knew he needed to protect me even after death. I took Arnold's ring, held it against my chest. I told him, "You knew. That's why you did it this way. That's why you left everything to me." That night, I couldn't sleep. I went over every conversation, every visit, every request, and they all fit into a pattern I hadn't wanted to see. The next morning, Jamal called me. "Mama, how are you?" "Fine, honey."
Brianna told me you watched Mason yesterday. Thank you. It was a pleasure. There was a pause. Mama, I need to talk to you about something important. There it was. I knew it. I could feel it. Tell me. I've been thinking, now that Mason is here, that we're a family, that things are growing. Don't you think it would be a good idea if we started organizing the estate better? What do you mean? Everything is still in your name. The house, the hardware stores, everything. And I understand Daddy did it that way to protect you. But, Mama, you're alone. If something happened to you, everything would be tied up in complicated legal proceedings. Wouldn't it be easier if I already had some things in my name? Like the house, for example. There it was. The house, exactly as Latrice's message had said. Jamal, your father left things this way for a reason. I know, Mama, but it's been 3 years. You're not as vulnerable anymore. You're not in mourning. It's time to be practical. Practical, I repeated. Yes. Besides, think about Mason, about his future. If the house were in my name, I could use it as collateral for investments, to grow the estate, to secure your grandson's future. Every word was calculated, every argument designed to hit my weak spots, my son, my grandson, my need to be useful. I'll think about it, I said. You'll think about it? His tone changed, became colder. Mama, this isn't something to think about much. It's logical. It's the right thing to do. Jamal, it's my house. The house where you grew up. I can't make that decision lightly. But eventually, it's going to be mine anyway. What's the difference? The difference is that your father wanted things this way, and I'm going to respect his will. Silence on the other end of the line. When Jamal spoke again, his voice sounded distant. Okay, Mama, I understand. But think about it. Talk to Attorney Carter. Ask him what's most convenient. I will. We hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand, feeling something had broken between us. Something small, but important. A trust, an innocence. That afternoon, I went to see Attorney Carter without telling Jamal. Mrs. Fields, what a pleasure to see you. How can I help you? Attorney Carter, my son is asking me to put the Buckhead house in his name. He says it's the most practical thing to do. The attorney took off his glasses and looked at me seriously. Mrs. Fields, Mr. Arnold was very clear in his will. Everything was left in your name for a reason.
He wanted you to have absolute control while you lived. But eventually, everything will be Jamal's. Yes, after your death, or if you decide to make changes. But Mrs. Fields, let me be frank. If you put properties in your son's name now, you lose all control. If he decided to sell them, mortgage them, or if he had financial or legal problems, you couldn't do anything. They wouldn't be yours anymore. But Jamal wouldn't do that. Maybe not, but Mr. Arnold structured it this way to protect you, not just from external circumstances, but also from impulsive decisions, yours or your son's. His words hit me like cold water. What do you recommend? That you keep everything as it is. If Jamal needs something, you can help him in other ways, but don't give up your estate, ma'am. Once you do that, there's no going back. I left that office with more clarity than ever. Arnold had protected me, and I was about to undo that protection because of my need to be loved. That night, alone in my house, I made coffee with cinnamon like I hadn't done in years. The smell filled the kitchen. I sat at the table where Arnold and I had shared thousands of cups together, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel alone. I felt accompanied by his decision, by his love, by his foresight. I took the ring from the indigo velvet box, put it on my ring finger. It was too big, but I held it there anyway. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for taking care of me, even after leaving." 2 days later, Jamal came to visit me without warning. He brought Brianna and Mason. "Mama, we came to have lunch with you. It's been a while since we shared." I prepared fried chicken, mac and cheese, and collard greens. I set the table carefully. During lunch, the conversation was light. Mason babbled in his high chair. I gave him spoonfuls of mashed sweet potatoes. But after coffee, Jamal pulled out an envelope. "Mama, we brought something for you to review." "What is it?" "Papers for the house transfer. I already talked to a notary. We just need you to sign them." I opened the envelope, read the documents, property transfer deed from Yvonne Fields to Jamal Fields. I felt the floor move under my feet. "Jamal, I told you I was going to think about it." "You've thought about it, haven't you? It's been several days." And I decided no, I'm going to keep things as your father left them. Jamal's face hardened. "Mama, don't be ridiculous. It's just paperwork."
It's not just paperwork. It's my house. It's the family house. And I am your family. I know, but while I'm alive, things stay as they are. Brianna shifted in her chair. Her eyes shone with something that wasn't sadness. It was fury. "Mrs. Fields, don't you trust your own son?" "This isn't about trust." "Then what is it about?" Jamal asked, raising his voice. "It's about respecting your father's will." "My father is dead, Mama, and you're using his will to cling to things that will eventually be mine anyway." "Exactly. Eventually. Not now." Jamal stood up from the table. Brianna followed, carrying Mason. "This isn't going to stay like this," my son said from the door. "We're going to have to talk to the lawyer. We're going to have to see legal options." "Legal options?" I repeated, incredulous. "Are you threatening me?" "It's not a threat, it's reality. You can't sit on an estate you don't use just because you're afraid to let it go." They left. The door closed, and I was left alone in that enormous house, looking at the envelope with the documents I didn't sign. I went to my room, took out Arnold's ring, and this time I didn't cry. This time, something inside me hardened, something that had been sleeping for years, a strength, a determination, a refusal to keep being the mother who lets herself be walked on. "I'm not going to sign," I told the ring. "I'm not going to give away what you built, what we built." And in that moment, I knew the battle was just beginning.
But I also knew something else. This time, I wasn't going to disappear. This time, I was going to fight. 3 weeks passed after Jamal left my house furious with those unsigned documents. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks without calls, without visits, without photos of Mason via text. It was a silent punishment, and it was working. Every day that passed without knowing about my son, without seeing my grandson, was a day that ate at me inside. I woke up at 3 a.m. thinking, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm the selfish one? What if I lose my son for clinging to a house? But every time I picked up the phone to call him, to apologize, to give in, I looked at Arnold's ring on my nightstand, and something inside me said, no, resist. It was in the 4th week when I received an unexpected call. Mrs. Fields? Yes, who's speaking?
This is Vanessa Sims. I work with your son Jamal at the logistics company. My heart raced. Did something happen to Jamal? Is he okay? No, sorry for scaring you. Jamal is fine. It's just that, well, I need to talk to you. It's important. What's it about? I'd prefer to tell you in person. Tomorrow at 11 at the coffee shop on Peachtree Street, across from the Fox Theater. There was something in her voice, urgency, fear maybe. I'll be there. That night I didn't sleep. What could that woman want? Why wouldn't she tell me over the phone? It had to do with Jamal. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I ordered black coffee that I didn't touch. My hands were trembling. Vanessa arrived exactly at 11. She was a woman of about 40, short hair, gray business suit, serious expression. She sat across from me without smiling. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Fields. What's happening? What does this have to do with my son? Vanessa took out her phone, searched for something, and showed it to me. It was a photo of Jamal at a restaurant with a woman. It wasn't Brianna. It was a young woman with brown hair and an open laugh. Jamal had his arm around her, looking at her, the way he hadn't looked at anyone in a long time. Who is she? I asked, though my voice barely came out. Her name is Ariana. She works in the Charlotte branch. Jamal travels there twice a month, supposedly for work. Charlotte. The Charlotte that Latrice had mentioned in that message. How long have they been together? Almost a year, maybe more. I found out because my cousin works in the same building. She's seen them together several times, eating lunch, leaving hotels. The coffee churned in my stomach. Why are you telling me this? Vanessa looked at me with something like compassion. Because I was also the cheated wife once, and someone told me, and though it hurt, I was grateful for it. I thought you should know what kind of man your son is before you make important decisions for him. Important decisions, she repeated. Vanessa leaned forward. Jamal talks a lot at the office. He says he's about to inherit a considerable estate, that his mom is getting older, and soon everything will be his, that he has big plans. Every word was a stab. My son says I'm getting older? Vanessa lowered her gaze. I'm sorry. I thanked her. I don't know how I managed to get up from that chair. I don't know how I got to my car, but when I closed the door, when I was alone, I finally let myself feel it all. The betrayal. Not just to Brianna, not just to Mason, but to me. To everything Arnold and I taught him about family, about honor, about commitment. I drove aimlessly for an hour. I ended up at Piedmont Park, the same park where we used to take Jamal on Sundays when he was a child. I sat on a bench, watched families pass by, fathers pushing strollers, children running after balls, and I thought, when did I lose my son? When did the child I loved so much become this man I don't recognize? I took out my phone, searched Google for
Ariana Paz Logistics, Charlotte, and found her. Her LinkedIn profile showed Ariana Morrison, 25 years old, operations manager. Her profile photo was exactly the woman from the photograph. I checked her Instagram. It was public. There were photos of trips, restaurants, sunsets, and in several, though not tagged, you could see Jamal in the background, or his hand, or his watch. Small signs for those who knew how to look. The most recent was from 2 weeks ago, a toast at a bar. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings with someone special." 2 weeks ago, right when Jamal had stopped talking to me because I didn't sign the papers. New beginnings. He was planning to leave Brianna. He was planning to start a new life with this woman. And if he did, what would happen to Mason? I returned home with my head spinning. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do with that information. That night, sitting in my living room with Arnold's ring in my hand, I did something I hadn't done since his death. I spoke to him out loud. "Arnold, our son is cheating on his wife, using his child, lying to me, and pressuring me to give him everything you and I built so he can, what? Finance his new life? Impress his mistress? Buy his freedom?" Tears fell down my cheeks. What do I do? Do I tell Brianna? Do I confront him? Do I stay quiet? And then, as if Arnold was answering me from somewhere, I remembered something he told me once. It was when Jamal was 15 and had lied about his grades. Arnold found out and punished him. Jamal cried, apologized, promised to change. That night in our bed, I told Arnold, "Maybe you were too hard on him." And Arnold responded, "Yvonne, love without consequences isn't love. It's enabling. If we let him lie now, what will he lie about later? Our job as parents isn't to make him happy, it's to make him good." Make him good. Had we succeeded? Or at some point, in my need to be the perfect mother, the one who forgives everything, the one who gives everything, had I raised a man who believed he could take without giving, who could lie without consequences, who could manipulate the person who loved him most? 2 days passed, and then I received a call from Brianna. She was crying. "Mrs. Fields, I need to talk to you." "What happened, Brianna?" "Can we meet? I don't want to talk over the phone." We went to a cafe near her house. When she arrived, her eyes were swollen, makeup smeared, hands shaking. She sat across from me, and before she could say anything, she burst into tears. "Jamal is cheating on me." There it was, the truth I already knew, but that she had just discovered. "How did you find out?" I asked. I checked his phone. I know it's wrong, but something told me something was off. I found messages, photos, hotel reservations in Charlotte, love messages with someone named Ariana. She cried harder. And the worst part isn't that. The worst part is I found another chat with my mom. My stomach tightened. What did it say? They'd been planning for months, my mom and Jamal, planning how to get you to sign over the house. My mom was telling him what to say, how to pressure you. They were using me, using Mason. Everything was a strategy. She took out her phone, showed me screenshots. Messages from Latrice to Jamal. "You have to be firmer with your mom. Tell her it's for Mason's future. If she doesn't sign now, it'll be harder later. Take advantage that she's vulnerable." And Jamal's response is, "I know Latrice, but she's stubborn. I'm going to take her the papers already filled out. Just need her signature. When we have the house, I can use it as collateral for the business I want to open with Ariana in Charlotte." There it was. Everything. The house wasn't for Mason. It was to finance his new life with his mistress. I'm sorry, Brianna said through sobs. I swear I didn't know. I swear I didn't know my mom was doing that. I believed her. I don't know. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. But in that moment, it didn't matter. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know. I have Mason. I don't work. I depend completely on Jamal. My mom tells me to forgive him, that all men fail, that the important thing is to keep the family together. I looked at this woman who had made me feel small, who had pushed me away from my grandson, who had allied with her mother to manipulate my son, and now was broken in front of me, a victim of the same man I had raised. Brianna, I said, taking her hand across the table, you have to decide what kind of life you want for yourself and for Mason. But I'm going to tell you something. Don't let anyone, not even your mother, tell you that you deserve less than what you really deserve. She nodded, wiping away tears. We said goodbye at the cafe door. I drove back to my house in silence, and when I arrived, I went straight to my study. I took out all the documents, the will, the deeds, the account statements, and called Attorney Carter. Attorney Carter, I need to see you tomorrow. It's urgent. Did something happen, Mrs. Fields? Yes. I finally opened my eyes. That night, I sat in my bed with Arnold's ring. Forgive me, love, I told the ring. Forgive me for almost betraying your trust, for almost giving away what you built with so much effort to protect me. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was being a foolish mother. I took the ring, put it on my finger. This time, it didn't feel so big. This time, it felt right. I'm not going to give him anything, I whispered. Not the house, not the hardware stores, not one more penny. It's over. If he wants his inheritance, he can wait until I die, like you planned it. And for the first time in 4 years since Arnold's death, I felt something that wasn't sadness. I felt anger. Clean anger. Righteous anger. Anger that doesn't destroy, but builds. Anger that says, no more. The next day, I went to see Attorney Carter. Mrs. Fields, how can I help you? I want to activate a clause in my husband's will. I want to make sure nothing he left can be touched by my son until after my death, and I want to do it irreversibly. The attorney looked at me surprised. Are you sure? Completely. May I ask what led you to this decision? The truth, Attorney Carter. I finally saw the truth. For the next 2 hours, we reviewed every document. I signed every paper, activated every protection Arnold had left in his will. When I left that office, the afternoon sun hit my face and I smiled. It wasn't a smile of revenge. It was a smile of liberation, of a woman who finally stops betraying herself for love. That night, Jamal called me. Mama, we need to talk. I know, I do too. Come to dinner tomorrow at 8. Brianna is going to cook. We have to fix this. Something in his tone told me it wasn't an invitation, it was a trap. But I was no longer afraid. I will be there, I said, because I knew the moment had come. The moment of confrontation, the moment to tell the truth, the moment to choose myself, even if it meant losing my son. Thursday arrived too quickly. I woke up at 6 a.m., though I didn't have to be at Jamal's house until 8 p.m. The days stretched before me like a desert I had to cross. I bathed calmly. I chose my clothes carefully, a pearl gray dress that Arnold had given me for our 30th anniversary. Simple, but elegant. I put Arnold's ring on the ring finger of my right hand. I looked at it under the morning light. You're coming with me, I told the ring. Today, more than ever, you're coming with me. I spent the day organizing papers, storing documents, as if I were preparing for something definitive, because I knew it. I knew that after that night, nothing would be the same. At 7:30, I drove to Sandy Springs. Traffic was heavy, the streets illuminated. The city was living its Thursday night routine, not knowing that for me, that Thursday would change everything. I arrived exactly at 8. I rang the doorbell. Jamal opened the door. He had dark circles, wore a wrinkled white shirt. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Come in, Mama." I entered. The house smelled like reheated food and tension, and there, in the living room, was Latrice, sitting in the main chair as if it were her house, dressed in white, hair perfectly styled, red lips. She smiled at me, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator that knows it has its prey cornered. "Yvonne, good thing you came." I didn't respond. I looked at Jamal. "What is she doing here?" "Mama, Latrice is part of this family. She's Mason's grandmother. She has a right to be in this conversation." "What conversation?" "Sit down, please." I sat in the individual chair, away from Latrice. Jamal remained standing, like an arbitrator in a trial. Brianna came out of the kitchen. She was carrying Mason in her arms. The baby was asleep. She looked at me, and her eyes were empty, as if something inside her had been turned off. "Well," Jamal said, clasping his hands together, "Mama, we called you because we need to resolve this situation once and for all." "What situation?" Latrice leaned forward. "Yvonne, let's be honest. You've been behaving very selfishly." I felt the air thicken. "Excuse me?" "What you heard. Your son is asking you for something completely reasonable, to put the house in his name. He's your only son, your only heir. Why are you clinging so much?" "Because it's my house." "It's an empty house where you live alone," Latrice continued, "while your son, daughter-in-law, and grandson live in a house they can barely afford. Does that seem fair to you? They chose that house. I gave them $120,000 for the down payment. $120,000 that you'll never let them forget," Latrice spat. "Always reminding them you helped them, as if it were a favor and not your obligation." "My obligation?" "Of course. You're his mother. It's your duty to help him. But no, you prefer to sit on an estate you don't use, you don't need, just for what? Power? Control?" I looked at Jamal. "Are you going to let her talk to me like this in your house?" Jamal looked down. "Mama, Latrice has some valid points." "Valid points?" I stood up. "I came here because you said we needed to talk, not to be insulted." "You're not being insulted," Latrice intervened. "You're being confronted with the truth. And the truth is, you're being a burden to your son." Those words hit me like a slap. "A burden?" "Yes, emotionally, financially. Jamal has to worry about you, about your empty house, about your loneliness, when he should be focusing on his own family. I've never asked him to worry about me." "You don't have to ask. You're his mother. It's automatic. And he feels guilty. Guilty about living his life while you wither away in that enormous house." "Latrice?" "Enough," Brianna said quietly. But Latrice didn't stop. "What you need, Yvonne, is to accept your stage. You're an older woman, a widow, alone. The healthiest thing would be for you to sell that house, move to a smaller apartment, something more manageable, and give Jamal what belongs to him. That way, he could have peace, and so could you." "And who gave you authority to tell me how to live my life?" Latrice smiled. That horrible smile. "I don't have authority, but common sense does, and any reasonable person would see you're being irrational." I turned toward Jamal. "Do you think this? That I'm irrational? That I'm a burden?" Jamal ran his hand through his hair. "Mama, I don't." Look, I just think it would be easier for everyone if you were more flexible. Flexible, I repeated. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Flexible means giving away my estate. Flexible means doing what you want regardless of how I feel. It's thinking about your grandson's future, Latrice said. Don't use Mason as a shield for your manipulation. Latrice stood up from the chair, planted herself in front of me. Taller, younger, stronger. I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm being the voice of reason in this dysfunctional family because clearly you raised a son who's afraid to say no to his own mother. Latrice, sit down, Brianna ordered. But Latrice remained standing, looking at me with contempt. You know what your problem is, Yvonne? You never got over your husband's death, and you're clinging to material things because you have nothing else. No friends, no social life, no purpose. Just that empty house and those memories that nobody else wants. Enough. Brianna's voice cut through the air like a knife, but the damage was done. Every word from Latrice had been calculated to hurt, and it had worked. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Jamal, I said, turning to my son, you brought this woman here to insult me. Jamal looked uncomfortable. Mama, I just wanted us to talk. Well, we've talked, and I heard everything you had to say. Now it's my turn. Everyone fell silent. I took Arnold's ring off my finger, held it up for everyone to see. This ring belonged to your father, the man who worked his whole life to build something, not just for him, not just for me, but for you too, Jamal. But he was wise enough to know that an estate in the wrong hands becomes a curse, not a blessing. Mama, please. Your father left everything in my name for a reason, because he knew me, because he knew I would protect what we built. And he also knew you. He knew you were good, but impressionable. He knew you could make impulsive decisions. He knew you needed protection, even from yourself. That's not true. No. I took out my phone, searched for the photos Vanessa had sent me. I showed them to him. Jamal went pale.
Who is Ariana? Brianna let out a sob. Latrice fell silent for the first time all evening. Who is the woman you've been seeing in Charlotte for almost a year? The woman you were planning to open a business with using my house as collateral? How did you find out? It doesn't matter how I found out. What matters is that now I know exactly what kind of man you are, and I know exactly what you wanted my house for. Jamal opened his mouth, closed it. He had no defense. But that's not all, I continued, looking at Latrice. I also know that you and this lady have been planning for months how to manipulate me, how to pressure me, how to use Brianna and Mason as emotional tools to make me give in. Latrice lifted her chin. I was just protecting my daughter and grandson. Lie. You were protecting your investment, because if Jamal got my estate, you would benefit too. Isn't it true you promised him that if he got the house, you'd help him with Ariana's business? Latrice didn't answer. She didn't deny it because it was true. I turned to Brianna. She was crying silently, rocking Mason in her arms. Brianna, I'm sorry. I'm sorry my son did this to you. I'm sorry your mother used you. And I'm sorry this innocent child is in the middle of all this. Mrs. Fields, she whispered, but I can't save you. That's not my battle. I looked back at Jamal. I went to see Attorney Carter. I activated all the protections in your father's will. The house, the hardware stores, the accounts, everything is locked under irrevocable trusts. I can't change it, even if I wanted to. You'll inherit only after my death. Not a day before, not a penny before. Jamal stepped toward me. Mama, you can't do that. I already did. That's revenge. That's justice. Maybe it is, or maybe it's simply what your father wanted from the beginning. You're punishing me for falling in love with another person.
I'm protecting you from yourself, like your father protected me." Latrice approached, her face red with fury. "You're a bitter, selfish, cruel old woman." "Maybe," I responded calmly, "but I'm a bitter old woman with my house, my estate, my dignity intact." "Jamal, you're not going to let your mother talk to me like this," Latrice hissed. And then it happened. Jamal looked at me. He looked at me with a coldness I had never seen in his eyes. "Mama," he said with a hard voice, "you need to apologize to Latrice." Time stopped. "What?" "You disrespected her, insulted her. She's my son's grandmother. Apologize now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Jamal, she insulted me first. She called me selfish, a burden, bitter. And maybe she was right. Look what you're doing, destroying your own family over money. It's not about money, it's about—" "Apologize to my mother-in-law," Jamal shouted. His voice echoed through the house. Mason woke up and started crying. There it was, the ultimatum. The line I never thought my son would cross. I looked at Jamal, at the man who had grown in my womb, the child I had rocked in my arms, the son I would have given my life for without thinking. And I saw a stranger. I saw a man who was asking me to humiliate myself in front of the woman who had conspired against me, a man who chose his manipulative mother-in-law over his own mother, a man who put conditions on my presence in his life. "Jamal, don't," Brianna cried. But Jamal wasn't listening. He stared at me, waiting for me to give in, waiting for me to kneel, waiting for me to choose his love over my dignity like I always had. But this time was different. I stood up, took my purse, walked toward Latrice. She looked at me with that victorious smile, with that gleam in her eyes that said, "I won." I stopped in front of her and said only 3 words, "Keep him yourself." Her smile froze. "What?" "Keep my son. With his lies, his betrayal, this disaster you helped create, he's all yours." Now I turned to Jamal. "Son, your father left you a clean name, an honest estate, solid values, and a mother who loved you more than her own life. And you traded all that for this?" I pointed around. "For this woman who manipulates you? For a mistress in Charlotte? For money you haven't earned? I can't save you anymore. I'm not going to try anymore. Mama, if you walk out that door—" "What? I won't have a son?" "Son, I haven't had a son for months. I only have a man who looks like him, but whom I don't know." I walked toward the door. "Yvonne, don't be dramatic." I heard Latrice's voice. "Sit down. Let's talk like adults." I didn't turn around. I opened the door. The cold night air hit my face. "Mama!" Jamal shouted. But I didn't stop. I walked down the stairs, walked to my car. My hands trembled so much it was hard to get the key in the lock. Finally, I managed. I sat in the driver's seat, and there, alone in my car, with my son's house lit up behind me, I let the tears fall. They weren't tears of regret. They were tears of mourning. Because that night, I didn't just lose my son. I lost the illusion of what he was. I lost the fantasy of the perfect family. I lost the child he had been and would never be again. But I also gained something. I gained my dignity. I gained respect for the woman in the mirror. I gained the peace of knowing I did the right thing, even though it hurt. Thank you for listening all the way. Maybe the story ended, but there are still so many feelings to share. Leave a few words from your heart in the comments. Who knows? Maybe the next story begins with yours.